है इसकी, you should be in advance meeting. With the figures dot 3 start. With the figures dot 3.
Hello, good afternoon. Am I audible?
नहीं कोई रिस्पॉन्ड कर रहा है सर। ये तो हम लोग का यूट्यूब पे कैसे हो जाएगा?
हेलो,
पूछिए। हेलो
फ्रेडरिक,
हेलो,
उनसे बात कर लीजिए।
हेलो फ्रेडरिक जी, आप मेरी आवाज सुन रहे हैं?
Yeah, hello.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but not that clear.
Okay, not.
जैसा हम नहीं कर
Clear? नहीं आ रही आवाज।
Sir, now I'm connected, I think. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
yes, yes,
You are audible, but are we audible?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
आज के इस कार्यक्रम में बिहार राज्य प्रदूषण नियंत्रण परिषद की ओर से मैं डॉक्टर नवीन कुमार आप सभी का हार्दिक अभिनंदन करता हूं और स्वागत करता हूं। जैसा कि आप जानते हैं कि राज्य प्रदूषण नियंत्रण परिषद द्वारा मंथली साइंटिफिक इंटरेक्टिव लेक्चर सीरीज की शुरुआत पिछले 7 साल की गई थी और इसी क्रम में आज हमारा 17th लेक्चर आयोजित किया गया है, जिसमें रिसोर्स पर्सन के रूप में हमारे साथ हैं डॉक्टर पूजा शर्मा, जो डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स दौलत राम कॉलेज यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ दिल्ली में एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर हैं। आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है डॉक्टर पूजा शर्मा जी। वी आर प्रिविलेज्ड टू हैव you with us this afternoon and very excited to listen you on this very contemporary topic. आज का जो टॉपिक है, जो विषय है डिस्कशन का, दैट इज क्लाइमेट चेंज एंड इम्पेरेटिव्स ऑन सस्टेनेबिलिटी, जो कि एक बहुत ही अहम और गंभीर विषय है, बिकॉज क्लाइमेट चेंज की जो समस्या है उसे न सिर्फ हम बल्कि पूरा विश्व झेल रहा है और इसके जो इफेक्ट्स हैं वो अब सामने नजर आने लगे हैं। और हमारा राज्य बिहार जो है वो भी इसके प्रभावों से अछूता नहीं है, बल्कि हमारा जो राज्य है इससे विशेष रूप से प्रभावित होता है, क्योंकि हमारे राज्य के कुछ हिस्से कभी बाढ़ से पीड़ित होते हैं तो साइमल्टेनियसली उसी समय ड्रॉट भी हमें झेलना पड़ता है। तो क्लाइमेट चेंज के जो प्रभाव हैं वो हमारे राज्य में नजर आते हैं। जो हमारी जनता है, जो पॉपुलेशन है, वो उससे प्रभावित होता है और इसीलिए राज्य सरकार काफी गंभीर है इस पे, और पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड के द्वारा भी एक क्लाइमेट रेजिलिएंट लो कार्बन डेवलपमेंट पाथवे के ऊपर एक स्टडी की जा रही है, जो हम यूएनईपी के साथ कर रहे हैं और करीब करीब वो अध्ययन पूरा हो चुका है। अब जल्दी ही हम उसे प्रकाशित करेंगे और उसमें सुझाए गए विचारों और उपायों को लेकर आगे बढ़ेंगे। तो इन सब दृष्टिकोण से आज का ये टॉपिक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है हमारे लिए और पूरे राज्य के लिए। तो इस कार्यक्रम में जुड़े हमारे सभी सहकर्मी मित्रों जो हमारे साथ ऑफलाइन और ऑनलाइन दोनों मोड से जुड़े हैं, बहुत बहुत स्वागत है और एक अभिनंदन है। कार्यक्रम में आगे बढ़ते हुए मैं अनुरोध करना चाहूंगा हमारे कलीग, सीनियर कलीग, पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड के साइंटिफिक एडवाइजर श्री एस एन जायसवाल जी से कुछ कतिपय कारणों से हमारे अध्यक्ष महोदय और सदस्य सचिव इस कार्यक्रम में शामिल नहीं हो पाए। कुछ कोर्ट केसेस और स्टेट असेंबली के अंदर कुछ प्रेजेंटेशन के कारण वो दोनों थोड़ा व्यस्त हैं। हो सकता है कि कुछ समय बाद वो इस कार्यक्रम में शामिल हो। तब तक मैं श्री जायसवाल जी से अनुरोध करना चाहूंगा कि वो अपने ओपनिंग रिमार्क से हमें लाभान्वित करें। श्री जायसवाल जी।
धन्यवाद नवीन जी। आज इस कार्यक्रम में जो हमारा बिहार राज्य प्रदूषण नियंत्रण परिषद द्वारा जो हम प्रतिमाह जो लेक्चर सीरीज का आयोजन किया जाता है, उसमें 17वें जो हमारा जो लेक्चर है आज, उसमें हमारे विशेषज्ञ डॉक्टर पूजा शर्मा जी का तहे दिल से शुक्रिया और अभिनंदन कि आज इस कार्यक्रम में आपने उपस्थित होकर हमें ज्ञानवर्धन करने का प्रयास करेंगी। मित्रों, जैसा कि अब सभी अवगत है और नवीन जी ने बताया अभी कि विशेष करके हमारे राज्य में जो पर्यावरणीय स्थिति है उसका इम्पैक्ट है, उससे भी हम सब अवगत है। विशेष करके आज का जो पूजा मैडम के द्वारा जो लेक्चर दिया जाना है, विशेष करके हमारा समय की जो समय के अनुसार जो हमारे बहुत ही उसकी इम्पोर्टेंस है। जैसा कि हम सभी जानते हैं कि ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस का इमिशन डिफरेंट सेक्टर से डिफरेंट सोर्सेस होते रहता है और इसका प्रभाव हमारे जलवायु परिवर्तन में पड़ता है। तो जलवायु परिवर्तन का उसका परिवर्तन पड़ता है, फिर उसका जो इम्पैक्ट है वो किस हद तक हम सहन योग्य हो सकते हैं, इन बातों को ध्यान रखते हुए आज के लेक्चर सीरीज में व्याख्यान किए जाएंगे पूजा मैडम द्वारा। और मुझे आशा है कि हमारे जलवायु परिवर्तन के लिए जो प्रयास किए जा रहे हैं राज्य स्तर पर, जो राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर या ग्लोबल स्तर पर, वो सभी प्रयासों को के अनुरूप हमें भी आगे बढ़ना है। और उसी व्याख्यान के तौर पे जो भी ज्ञान हमें प्राप्त होगा और थोड़ा सा उसको हम लोग और कोशिश करेंगे कि अपने अपने हिस्से से भागीदारी से कैसे हम जलवायु परिवर्तन को कम कर जलवायु परिवर्तन होने वाले जो प्रतिकूल प्रभाव होते हैं उसको कैसे कम कर सकते हैं। तो इन सब प्रयासों में एक सहभागिता होनी चाहिए, एक वैज्ञानिक क्षेत्र से और आम जनों की तरफ से भी सहभागिता की आवश्यकता है। और इसी सहभागिता के कड़ी में हम लोग आज जो लेक्चर से रखते हैं, क्योंकि हम लोग सभी लोग ज्ञानवर्धन हो सबका और लोग सब समझे और अपने अपने जिम्मेदारियों का निर्वहन करें। तो ज्यादा समय का अनुवाद नहीं करते हुए, जैसा कि बताया गया कि अध्यक्ष महोदय आज बिहार विधानसभा में कुछ हमारा एक मीटिंग था बहुत अर्जेंट, तो जस्ट कल ही परसों सूचना आई थी, तो उसके हिसाब से अध्यक्ष महोदय को वहां जाना पड़ा। कुछ कोर्ट मैटर सेक्रेटरी भी अभी आउट ऑफ हमारे बैठक से बाहर है, बट जैसे ही बैठक खत्म होगी, बैठक खत्म वहां होगी, निश्चित रूप से दोनों ही जोड़ने का प्रयास करेंगे। तब तक हम लोग कार्यक्रम को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए आगे बढ़ते हैं। नवीन जी, नेक्स्ट।
थैंक यू श्री जायसवाल जी। लेट अस गिव अ बिग हैंड टू हिम। जैसा कि मैंने आपसे पहले ही शेयर किया था, वी आर प्रिविलेज्ड टू हैव विद अस डॉक्टर पूजा शर्मा जी। शी इज एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर विद डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स, दौलत राम कॉलेज, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ दिल्ली। और just formally to introduce her, I would like to request my colleague Sri Arun Kumar ji, who is the board analyst of this board, please.
Thank you, Naveen ji. आज हम लोग के बीच डॉक्टर पूजा शर्मा जी डॉक्टर पूजा शर्मा जी का व्याख्यान सुनने के लिए हम लोग व्याकुल हैं। और इनके द्वारा जो है क्लाइमेट चेंज पर व्याख्यान दिया जाना है और इससे हम सभी लोग लाभान्वित होंगे। तो डॉक्टर पूजा शर्मा जी is working as associate professor, Department of Economics, Daulat Ram College, University of Delhi. She is an alumni of Miranda House, University of Delhi. She completed her masters in economics from Delhi School of Economics, MPhil and PhD from Jawaharlal Nehru University, and PhD fellow at the University of Agder, Norway. An avid Gandhian, her contribution varies in the field of energy security, energy transition, renewable energy, human capital, and Gandhian perspective on energy transition. Also engaged in CEC, UGC live lecture series related to environmental economics, climate change, and sustainability. She has published papers in reputed journals. She has contributed 2 books on Gandhian thoughts, that is, Thought Through the Lens of Mahatma, Journey of a Migrant, and Living in Truth, the Gandhian Paradigm. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun ji. So today we have a distinguished speaker with us, and a Gandhian. That is
Gandhian thought.
Truly Gandhian.
so. Really, madam, we are delighted and privileged to have you with us, and looking forward to hear you. So now the floor is yours.
So much. आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
आ रही है। बहुत बहुत खुशी और धन्यवाद है मुझे आप साहा सर का, प्रोफेसर साहा ने जो मुझे रिकमेंड किया और मुझे मौका दिया अपनी बातें रखने का। तो आई एम वेरी वेरी ग्रेटफुल टू बी इनवाइटेड बाय बिहार स्टेट पोल्यूशन कंट्रोल बोर्ड and really feel honored to present my talk today on sustainability. So मैं अपना स्क्रीन थोड़ा शेयर करना चाहूंगी। कितना टाइम है मेरे पास?
40-45 is fine.
ओके 40 minutes. तो मैं शेयर एक्चुअली करना चाहती थी स्क्रीन, 1 सेकेंड। आपको दिख रहा है?
अभी तो नहीं आ रही मैडम।
दिख रहा है ना?
नहीं अभी नहीं।
हाँ, yes.
यस
आ गया। ओके
So
सो
slide show
yeah.
कर-
अच्छा, स्लाइड शो कर देते हैं।
यस
All right. So the topic for today, actually मुझे थोड़ा सा इसमें लग रहा था कि मैं किस टॉपिक पे बोलूं, सब तो इंटरकनेक्टेड है और फाइनली मुझे लगता है कि एक ही सोल्यूशन मिलता है, वो गांधीन पर्सपेक्टिव का मिलता है। तो ये पूरी एक जर्नी है। तो अभी मैं शुरू करूंगी जर्नी एमिशन से और क्लाइमेट चेंज के बारे में बोलते हुए एंड धीरे धीरे इकोनॉमिक्स एस्पेक्ट में जाऊंगी और फिर एनर्जी को भी लेके आऊंगी और फिर देखूंगी कि कैसे फ्रेमवर्क ह्यूमन एक्टिविटी की वजह से ही सारा कुछ चारों तरफ जो हो रहा है वो ह्यूमन एक्टिविटी का कंट्रीब्यूशन मुझे मेन लगता है और उस पूरे फ्रेमवर्क को मैं डिस्क्राइब करते हुए आगे बढ़ूंगी। सो एक कोई स्पेसिफिक टाइटल नहीं है बिकॉज व्हेन वी टॉक अबाउट सस्टेनेबिलिटी इज अ ह्यूज एस्पेक्ट व्हिच इंटीग्रेट्स every aspect of human life. So that's why climate change and its impact on sustainability or implications on sustainability is a ever going process and one needs to go deeper, and more you go deep you understand the nuances and the interconnected and the tough part of it, that is the challenge of it. So I will introduce the topic of climate change. We all know that the climate change is the biggest global problem now and the present times, and unprecedented natural disasters. We have seen that happening. So the role of economics is critical in this. And when we talk about economics, we will have to touch the terms like tragedy of commons, public good, global common, and that will be introduced. Stock pollutants are another very important point one should not ignore. And we have seen generally, if you introduce climate change, it is basically the substantial rise in temperature that has led to frequent storms, additional rainfall leading to damages, incidents of wildfires, and etc. So heat waves, they contribute to human deaths. And therefore, the debate on climate change does not reflect enough consensus that the recent changes are attributed by the human activity. Though the large number of economists के अंदर भी ये डिस्कोर्स चल रहा है और साइंटिस्ट के अंदर भी कि किस एक्सटेंट तक ह्यूमन एक्टिविटी ने क्लाइमेट चेंज में कंट्रीब्यूट किया है। एक तो एक नेचुरल प्रोसेस होता है क्लाइमेट चेंज का और दूसरा होता है ह्यूमन एक्टिविटी का कंट्रीब्यूशन। तो दैट इज टू बी डिटरमिन्ड एंड ये प्रॉब्लम फिर चैलेंज सारे ही डिसिप्लिन्स का हो जाता है। लाइक इकोनॉमिक्स में प्रॉब्लम हो जाता है कि हाउ टू टैकल एंड हाउ टू जस्टिफाई, मेनली बिकॉज हम लोग के कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं ट्रेजेडी ऑफ कॉमन्स, आई कम टू दैट soon. So climate change discourse does not establish a direct, first of all, it does not establish the direct connection between the climate change and any weather event such as hurricane. Ecological imbalance and disturbances further exerts the problem of diseases like very epidemics and pandemics, as we recently faced COVID-19. So this ecological imbalance coming through the climate change is another discourse which everybody is not ready to accept it. Human activities such as deforestation leading to changes in the land use, human settlement, then commercial development, road construction, soil erosion, there's n number of them. And those are leading to climate change. That is again a very indirect relationship we understand, but to consider it as a direct connection, we need to go deeper. Various scientists and ecologists and economists have asserted that the climate change can result in damage of infrastructure, resulting in the spread of diseases across globe. And the WHO in 2018 also predicted that there will be between 2030 and 2050, climate change is expected to cause approximately 25,000 additional deaths per year from malnutrition, malaria, diarrhea, heat stress, etc. So the countries with weak health infrastructure, what are they going to do? Mainly the developing countries like us will least be able to cope up with the problems which are going to come. We are going to face problems. So the direct damage cost to health is estimated in US dollars, and that is around 2 to 4 billion by the year of 2030. So some important scientific content used in the articles and etc., they have worked out a grassroots level to create a scientific awareness and information to the masses regarding the SDGs, which should be totally integrated with the climate resilient point of view. Most of the regions encounter technical constraint of know-how, technological know-how, natural resource constraint, and sometimes financial constraints also. So in this, the role of the natural support system is very, very important, which arises the natural support system of local resources, people around, environment around, and local mechanisms to fight the climate change, and local inefficiencies and impediments which are there. To remove those impediments should be integrated in the policies so that a comprehensive and sustainable framework can be made. So this present talk will talk about the climate change quickly and talk about the tragedy of commons, and then public goods, global commons will be addressed, and then we will talk about the interconnectedness of climate change, environment degradation, ecological imbalance, health crisis, and how this entire framework is interconnected to each other. Considering human activity in the production and consumption at the center and the heart of the framework, we will see that how it has led to the ecological imbalance. So and they should become the instrument of all the solutions, mitigating health crisis, etc. So the social support system, naturally, this will be highlighted in this particular talk. So we have seen climate change is it includes large scale of variables like temperature, precipitation, storms, in intensity, water cycles get disrupted and increasing. So we have seen the crisis peaking up, soaring up to a high extent. In June 2022, we realized that unexpected environmental development disasters have taken place. Heavy rains have taken place. It's from 2021 onwards, it has aggravated more. If you see month of June 2021, you can see that from 1st June onwards, there is a systematic series of disasters happening. At least 11 people were believed to be dead and 1133 missing in hurricane of Agatha, slams in Mexico, wildfires in Eastern Afghanistan, 106 people were killed in landslides in northern Eastern Brazil. Then onwards, you will see June 14, June 15, June 16, continuous things are happening day by day. And then cities across globes are facing and fighting climate change, which are home to 4.5 billion people today. Cities which are projected to grow by almost 50% of 2050, what we are, they will be double more than that. They are the engines of growth, and we cannot stop growing at the same time. So 80% of the world's GDP, along with 70% of the global carbon emissions in the recent years, they become the epicenter of the growth, all the cities. But these are the cities which are at the stake of the survival. So by 2050, 800 million people in 570 coastal cities would see the sea level rise of 0.5 meter and intensifying the storm surges. Global warming may leave more than 1.6 billion urban people facing an average summertime temperature of 35 degrees centigrade. And that cities will also be in the front line, where 1,000 cities announced should be actually be devoid of GHGs by 2050. So basically transforming our cities to better urban future, which have become the hub of the cause of the carbon emissions. So that should be catered. The planning should be proper. Urban planning must be done to avoid and control and mitigate this problem. So global warming, we all know it's a carbon and methane and other GHGs emissions, which are concentration in the global climate, and that affects the whole of the global temperature. IPCC projected that by 2100, between 1.5 degree rise is expected relative to the pre-industrial. Even it is going to go by from 1.5 degrees, it may rise to 4.8 degrees centigrade also, as compared to the pre-industrial temperatures. Now, it is the effect of, if you just see this particular diagram, so it was quickly telling us that how the sun rays get trapped, and how not all are emitted back, but they get trapped into, they absorbed by the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and that is how we are building up the greenhouse effect. And the greenhouse effect works much the same way as we see on Earth. The gases in the atmosphere, such as carbon dioxide, they trap heat like glass roof does it in the greenhouse effect. And these heat trapping gases are greenhouse gases, and this is what has been disrupted. And then we see that further that it has resulted into a global warming, climate change, and the climate data records provide that evidence of climate change. The key indicators of that it has actually happened, climate change has actually happened, are the indicators such as global land and ocean temperature rising, rises in the sea levels, ice loss at the Earth's pole areas in mountain glaciers, frequency and severity of the changes in the extreme weather, such as hurricanes, heat waves. We just saw that wildfires, droughts happening all around us, with the increase in precipitation and droughts also. So climate change and global warming is the fact of life now. And whether so basically we need to cater. Now this becomes a problem for economics to handle. Why? Because we consider these as a tragedy of commons. See here, the emissions, ये जो emissions का जो responsibility है, वो developed countries already कर चुके हैं, and developing countries are on their way. So one cannot actually identify that who emitted and how much they emitted and what actually led to the climate change, because of the what we are going to describe is the stock pollutants which remain in the atmosphere. Not all of them remain in the atmosphere, but some of them dissipate also. So to what extent you are responsible, which country is responsible for that becomes a problem, but it is a common problem. So it's a common good. That's why the common property tragedy of handling the tragedy of commons and common property, that becomes a problem when we talk about climate change as such. So these activities are primarily they primarily in the form of the natural resources and inputs like intermediates such as coal, natural gas, oil, mineral. So all these resources which are natural, again, they hold the property of common good. So this under the same scenario, climate change also falls in. Common property resource is a resource that is available to everybody, but it has a characteristic of non-exclude. You cannot exclude any person from using it, and you cannot own that. But at the same time, the resource may diminish and its quantity may be reduced, and therefore it is a rival consumption. So from the economics angle, if we want to treat that problem of common good, we have to take into account that they are non-excludable and rival. To some extent, they have the characteristic of public good. So the way we treat public good as a solution, that same solution should be applied to the common good, like climate change. But there are a lot of problems related to while tackling that. And global commons and property resources such as atmosphere and the oceans, they all come under the global common. And therefore, the pollution and the climate change also comes under that same purview and same perspective. So after decades of failure of international level to produce any agreement involving all countries, significant progress that was achieved in Paris in 2015 when 195 nations under UNCC Act, and they signed the first global agreement aiming at keeping all overall increase in the global temperature below 2 degrees centigrade. So because carbon emissions and other greenhouse gases continuously accumulate in the atmosphere and they freeze in the they're stabilizing or freezing the emissions, and this is the case of cumulative stock pollutant. Now I'm coming to the problem of stock pollutant, because of which one cannot identify which country emitted what and what led to climate change. So accumulation of stock pollutant is that that particular pollutant does not dissipate or degrade significantly over time and can accumulate in the atmosphere or the environment, such as carbon dioxide and chlorofluorocarbons. So development of national and international policies to combat global climate change is a huge challenge involving all the scientists, economists, and social scientists and across globe. So carbon emissions of basically China, we say that in 2014, the latest figures also I have, that China contributed that together they have China, Russia, Brazil, United States, India. Together they have accounted for 50.1% of the global population and 61.2% of the global GDP. But at the same time, 63.4% of the global fuel consumption has been contributed together. But another study has reflected that China contributed 29% of emissions, followed by US around 15%, EU around 11%, India 6%, and Russian Federation 5%, and Japan 4%. Rest of the world contributes 30% of emissions in 2014. Then per capita carbon emissions are also maximum in US and lowest in Bangladesh. So annual temperature has been consistently rising 1850 onwards. A graph, I will show you the graphs also, where it is very much visible that it has been rising continuously. As some of this particular graph, as you can see on your screen, this tells us that top 60 carbon dioxide emitting countries here between 1750 to 2020. So this is important to understand that who has been emitting for a long period of time, because the accumulation is done over the period of time which has led to carbon emissions. So we see that the maximum emissions over this time period is by US, then followed by China, Russia, Germany, UK, Japan, India, and so on. So another graph tells us that how carbon emissions have been rising from 1750 onwards to 2020. There has been significant rise from 1890 onwards. And the rise can easily be seen in the graph, that how the emissions in billion metric tons have been rising. All right. So carbon emitting countries we have already seen. Then, you can see here the 1 degree above. So 1 degree centigrade above from 1951 with 1980 as a baseline. So 1 degree centigrade rise in the temperature. So from 1880, we were below 1 degree centigrade, and slowly we can see that how it has been continuously, consistently rising. The temperatures are rising globally, and it has reached by 2016 almost reaching to from till 2020. It is actually projection past, so it is almost touching the 1 degree centigrade rise. So now different fuels, now energy, when you talk about emissions, you have to talk about energy, because without that we are nowhere. So one needs to talk about fossil fuel burning, and that happens from 1751. If you see, we were hardly emitting from these fossil fuels. And from gas, the different colors are showing the different emissions from different sources. So gas, oil, coal, from the production process and flaring, all these are the major contributors of carbon emissions. And the way they have contributed, you can see that from 1891, 19th century onward, like in 20th century, we have been emitting these, and they are from different colors. So coal is the leading contributor of carbon emissions, followed by the red one, that is oil. So coal, oil, then gas, and then other production processes. They are the process. And then if you see OECD countries, which are developing countries, the contribution made by non-OECD, if you see from 1971 to 2012, the contribution made by non-OECD countries is much higher. The proportion is almost similar in the beginning, but it has, OECD countries have maintained a proportion, similar proportion, but non-OECD have jumped up. So this is an important aspect. And then from, we said it 2012 तक का बोला था, अब यहाँ 2010 से लेके 2050 तक फ्यूचर प्रोजेक्शन, उसमें आप देखो कि non-OECD कंट्री का कंट्रीब्यूशन क्या है, जो रेड से दिख रहा है, ऑफ कार्बन dioxide emissions. So non-OECD countries have started contributing more to carbon emissions as compared to the OECD countries. And this linkage which you see now in this particular graph, that how carbon emissions are actually affecting the whole of system of functioning, that economic growth, which is indispensable, one cannot be without it, inevitable. So economic growth has led to three kind of various variety of emissions and consumptions: carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, carbon from fuel, oxidized carbon, then burning the nitrogen, all these three different ways, and they are all leading to GHGs here on the corner, the left hand side corner of GHGs. Now GHGs have led to climate change, and it has led to various impacts. Now the type of impacts, and in the introduction also sir was talking about that, what is the impact? The impact is huge. The first impact is the climate change, which is the parameters or the way we capture climate change is rise in average temperature, rise in precipitation, rise in frequency of floods, heat waves, intensity, typhoons and all that. But at the same time, the impact is seen on the sectoral economic growth. We were looking at economic growth of different sectors. It was a positive point, but we have again come back to the loss of economic growth in various sectors as health, forestry, tourism, livestock, manufacturing sector, agriculture sector, and it has led to huge climate migration. So these are the socio-economic issues which has been resulted because of climate change. So it started with economic growth and it has impacted economic growth. So this vicious cycle which we are right now seeing it is a vicious cycle which has to be broken some way or the other. So the sustainability lies here. Well, how do you break this interconnectivity or vicious cycle? So now I'm coming to the point that impact of climate change and environment and health. Now, how the indirect impact of one is through of climate change on natural disasters. The other one is the health impact, which is an indirect impact, not a direct impact of climate change. Many economists and biologists and ecologists and scientists have failed to accept it as a impact of climate change. But in my study, I propose this, that it is again an impact of climate change as a consequence of human activity. Various chemicals and harmful gases are released in the atmosphere and environment, which have long-term and short-term disruptions. So emissions of greenhouse gases result in temperature rise, we all know, and precipitation, and all this has an impact on the vegetation cover. Soil erosion reduces moisture content and moisture storage capacity and affects the crop production. There is enough evidence to prove that if humans have to live on Earth, then that life should be effectively based on the systematic alliance between each component of ecology, basically means that if humans have to live on Earth, they have to have a synchronization with the ecology. In the history of pandemics, 3 deadliest pandemic we have seen with the same bacteria that is named as pestis, Yersinia pestis, and that was name given earlier later. So this is the graph or diagram that tells us the interconnectivity of climate change, environment, human activity, and health. So if you can see in the entire cycle, it's the human activity which is in the center, and it is in the form of, you can see that it is in the form of production and consumption. So this activity affects the environment because of emissions and because of soil degradation and all other ways. And then it affects greenhouse gases also. Production consumption leads to greenhouse gases on the right-hand side corner, gray box, gray circle. And from GHGs, we come to climate change, and climate change affects the environment and ecology in the form of soil erosion and all that we just saw. And then indirectly, this imbalance which is being created because of moisture content and the other instability which it causes between the bacteria and microbes, that affects the health diseases and disasters. So, and DDT and all the pesticides and all that being used, chemicals being used by the human activity, that also comes in between, and this particular air pollution, water pollution, land degradation, all that is the outcome or the byproducts of this human activity. And therefore, we have seen that over the years, Black Death is believed to be the birth giver of quarantine. We know quarantine now after COVID-19, but it was well framed back in Black Death, which was hit by Europe was hit by that, and 1347 claimed lives. Over 400 million people within the 4 years of time period were lost. So London outbreak of plague was there, then which killed, which was a huge thing, and then Spanish flu happened, H1N1 virus, and 500 million people were killed. And so there's a systematic sequences of health diseases, swine flu happening, and then disruption of the production consumption. So it has, again, this health impact has again an indirect impact on the various activities. So I've listed all the various catastrophes which have happened in environment and the climate change in the recent years, starting from 2017, 2011, 2020, recent ones, 2018, 2017, 2004, then we're going back to 19. So you can see the list of many events and disasters happening. Maybe some of them happening because of the pandemic, and okay, these are the health hazards happen, not the exact natural disasters. Because I propose that, like in this study, we are proposing that there is, on one side, this is natural disaster, and the other indirect impact is the health disaster. So they are going parallelly. So that is what we see, that the challenges of climate change, the health crisis should not be ignored, and these are the major disasters. And human being the center of the entire thing, entire framework, they should find local solutions and local community understanding to find and unfold the problems. So the solutions also lies in the local community. So it is evident that the natural disasters that have resulted in the climate change affect the different regions in different ways. So we look for the local solutions. So how do we empower various local technologies so that they can scale up and they become the major pathway for the whole of country or the whole of state, and they become the leading, they become the drivers of change, or they become they are the leading policies for change. So on the production side, we see that large-scale deployment of renewable energy like wind, biomass, these are things which are going on right now to curb the emissions, and but all depends upon the technology. Again, to wind, there is a vicious cycle again existing in using the renewables, because if you use your renewables, you have to develop technology, and if you develop the technological know-how, you are again emitting in some way or the other. The batteries, they are not sustainable. Basically, all the components used for using renewable energy adoption or tapping the renewable energy resources, one needs to again have development, and development leads to again emissions. And there are financial problems also. So basically, we're looking for the role of natural support system. In this diagram, we will see that how the natural support system of local resources, people, environment, and local mechanism can still help us while addressing the consumption solution. This was the production solution, that we need things to produce. And the other side is, what should we consume? Humans' lifestyle and the way we are living, what should be the pathway for consumption that is sustainable? So consumption aspect of human activity is very, very essential, and it should be revisited as a pattern of lifestyle which should be adopted by the people. Philosophy here comes the Mahatma Gandhi philosophy that there is a sufficiency in the world for man's need, but not for man's greed. So, but must never be forgotten that we are here to need for our special existence and not for the greed. So our need and the greed should be taken care of, and that should decide what the quantity, the quantum of consumption we produce in the economy or in the society. State and the government can play an important role. Like ministries can play a very important role deploying instruments of taxes, levying extravagant taxes for the extra consumption. And the consumptions should be for minimal consumption pattern should be guaranteed by the ministries and by the state authorities. Now, state authorities and government should work in collaboration with the local people, local challenges, because we are talking about local challenges. Climate change is a global, at the same time, local impact. It is both global and local. So one has to get, because the impact is both globally and locally. If you see each region has its own. You were talking about different variety of impacts in Bihar. So Bihar also has variety of challenges of climate change, all challenges happening at the same time. Within Bihar, I'm very sure कि इसमें भी कुछ regions में flood area से कुछ connected होगा, कुछ ज़्यादा connected होगा, कुछ कम connected होगा. So local solutions are the key. Social support system, natural support system, and the kind of technology that can be used to prevent that particular hazard, that should be given and empowered. It should be given empowering by a decentralized system, where the government should support a decentralized system to fight all these disasters and make it resilient. So natural disasters and health disasters. When I'm talking about disasters, it is both the type of disasters, health disaster and natural disasters. So local methods for preparedness of disasters, food security, health security, and empowering the local bodies to produce something which is more substantial and affects the ground people in a real sense. So communities should be strengthened by extending the services and the type of informal community relationship, which we have seen in pandemic COVID-19, that it was the informal community relationship that really helped. So people, interconnectedness of people, the social systems which we are right now catering to, that should be integrated with the government. So government should be working with the common man, common people, with when I say with, so it is not through the policy, it is the partnership of participation, and participation involves a lot of activities and lot of agendas and basically programs. So where that should be working with the community base. And same thing I propose that in the energy case also, it should be done for the decentralized way and in a way that caters to each community, to their own needs, according to the availability of local resources. So it should be a combination of both top-down and bottom-up approach. It cannot be one-sided top-down approach. And this is how we can solve the problem of SDGs, which we have. So SDGs will be sustainable only when we are talking about local and global together, with the interconnectedness of the local and global. So this brings the role of management and disaster preparedness with the local bodies and local communities, and empowering the local people to take actions and to take enough resources and enough possibilities, in enough infrastructure for building the infrastructure, enough projects, and jointly participating in certain voluntary aspects. So voluntary aspects like NGOs, civil societies, they must be empowered for a hand holding and togetherness. So that support system which is then built up, the ecosystem which we create for fighting the climate change and fighting the making a climate resilient regions, not even the states. So states will become automatically resilient, and nation will automatically be resilient if the local bodies are resilient. So natural support system with the local bodies, we become more resilient. So there are centralized pathways and there are decentralized pathways. So decentralized pathways, I have shown in other study that decentralized pathway will lead to more energy security and it will lead to more sustainability. So in this, I'm just giving the background and the crux of the that particular energy transition uh, study, that survival of economies. We have seen that it happened in Cuba, and we have seen the various examples from across globe that ये जो decentralized framework है वो वहां भी work किया है. So why not adopt it here? Not as a system, not as a only policy, but in collaboration with the centralized and decentralized framework. So which in we saw in US embargo in 1960 that Cuba was a could easily succeed in bringing in the energy security. So Island of Peace, there's another community of Arc in France, which is completely sustainable. So you find these communities even outside, but they are somewhere hidden. They are not in the limelight and they are not brought in this limelight. Basically, I'm talking about tribal areas like Gonda tribes in central India, then villages like Mendha village in Tehsil. So these are the villages which are actually sustainable, and if you see the ecosystem that is brilliantly without pollution, without emission, and they have their own ways of using the resources, which is sustainable method of using resources. So these communities, when you look at them, you can learn a lot from the kind of ecosystem they adopt. So these are the based on forest, their natural waste system, their traditional and cultural systems. So they're part of that way of living. So other civil societies which are also working, but those is, one should safeguard the notion and lobbying and everything that should be done.
And you are not audible. Online कितने का?
फ्लो खराब हो जाता है ना. Yes.
हाँ, बहुत अच्छा बोल.
She must be also anxious. She must be also anxious.
Sorry, sir, can you hear me?
Please.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really sorry because of this connection problem. Now sharing the screen. It's almost done. How much time do I have?
Madam, I would like to share with you that our chairman, our member secretary, Sri H. Chandrasekhar ji, has also joined us.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am.
So,
Yeah.
can I begin?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am, please.
Okay, my slides are visible.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. You put it on the slideshow mode.
Slideshow. Okay. I'll just quickly go through. Okay, we have already gone through these graphs and we were talking about the local and global community setups. So where we was talking about the local areas, which are local empowerment communities, which are working completely on a sustainable processes, not emitting zero emission framework, and which are peaceful and having a sustainable living. So in the centralized kind of energy, we were talking about energy here, and in the centralized process of way of providing energy systems, we have this lock-in issue with the centralization, where the problem is that the all the power and the systems are handled by the center, and then there is a problem of distribution, transmission, and which is through the various grid, and that reaches out to the rural areas also. But the kind of transparency and the kind of observation or monitoring system is there, which is absent usually. And in these system, here in decentralized, what we're talking about a distributed network rather than transmission, where the small scale plants and supply electricity to the building and industrial site and communities in the micro generation form, where the small installation of solar panels and turbines and wind turbines and biomass, they all cater to a small community. So the community takes over the responsibility of running of the system, and they take over the charge of sustaining the systems and maintaining the systems. So here, if you see, I've just given a brief outline and an overall view, that schematic framework, that if you want to have economic growth is inevitable, you have to have energy consumption. Energy consumption, when it becomes renewable, it leads to less concentration of power, it leads to large scale production, it leads to the orange one is centralized. So in the case of decentralized system, if you cater in a framework that is a decentralized level, so decentralization empowers the local community. It leads to equal distribution of wealth because all people in the local areas will get benefited. It will lead to a self-reliant, employed, and employment oriented and energy secure communities, which have more time for their own social gatherings, which even empowers the social and natural support system. So they all go hand in hand, and they all there is a synchronization of all aspects which we are talking in a separate way for fighting the climate change. So everything will be together, integrated framework. And this kind of integrated framework is possible when there is a decentralized way of approach of all these aspects, and decentralized approach of even electricity, like energy systems. They themselves will empower the communities and create their own ecosystem for handling these climate change issues, local climate change issues, and resilience. So here, again, I've given the examples of various communities in various places which are working on this framework of decentralized system. And yes, so now I'm just bringing the entire discussion to the end, where I say that local communities should be strengthened and rewarded, and the solutions should be local, and they should like employ the local resources, and they should be helped at the same time supported by the center and the state to create their own natural support system and the local communities and independence, where the emotional security at the same time social networks and support system will create a kind of nexus that will help them survive in a sustainable manner for and fight any kind of climate change and natural disaster and health disaster, whatever be the case. So the infrastructure which we talk about and sustainable development, the goals which we talk about, SDGs, SDG 6, which is clean air, and SDG 9, which is industry, innovation, and infrastructure, SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, SDG 12, which is responsible community consumption and production. We've been talking the whole lecture, we were talking about consumption and production. That should be a responsible consumption and production. So SDG 13, which is climate action, and SDG 17, which is partnership for goals. All this are catered and tackled, and if we just aim at providing the local solutions for the problems and nature-based solutions, natural support system, and community-based systems, and this is how one should can visualize the kind of environment where we are living in and fight the sustainability problem of climate change. So with this, I'll like to end, and thank you so much for giving me time, listening to me.
Thank you, madam, for the wonderful presentation. So behind. So now I would invite, rather like to invite the participants offline as well as online, if they have any queries or any point to make, you are welcome. Yes. Raji. Yes, please.
Pooja, thank you so much. Good to see you after a long pause.
Yes,
Really
sir.
happy
It's
that-
wonderful seeing you also. It's amazing. Always a pleasant meeting you and seeing you. So
thank
good to see you after a long time.
Presentation and you told like a storytelling of all the aspects and issues and problems, solutions also, framework also, all in one. You have made a very good presentation, and that speaks of your professionalism, confidence among the students that I was remembering the working with your students. When I
Yes,
was-
sir. It was I will just say a few words for that. I met you in Central Pollution Board in Delhi, and we were looking for the data for pollution for Delhi state. And it was, I mean, you were just God gifted for us. I mean, you made our journey so easy, and we just kept on going, and you guided us with the nutrition. The health aspect was introduced by you in that entire project. The health component we were ignoring, and nutrition we were ignoring in the pollution. So that was a wonderful contribution by you, and the students had a wonderful, comfortable journey of collecting data and taking data from you. We used to disturb you so much, but the kind of support which you gave us, it is phenomenal.
My duty, as you
Unparalleled.
told, to make the young generation they're comfortable in future also. And also, sir, thank you so much to our chairman. He is the only person he's not suggested this topic, and when he suggested some economy and ecology and the environment should go all together,
Yes.
I suggested your name, and immediately he has accepted, and our member secretary made a communication to you. And thank you very much for giving us. Really good to see you after long years. Maybe after 10 years, I'm looking.
Yes, you can say that. Before COVID, yeah.
So it is always good to work with you people. And thank you so much from me also, and from my board also.
My
And
pleasure.
like lecture, it is really recapitulated in mind. And probably we have 2 papers with you. That is also a precious memory with us. Now
True.
the floor Because let's start with a positive note. Jaswal sir must be having so many questions.
Thank you very much, madam. Really, you presented the things as a subject matter very rightly, and one thing that I've gone through your lecture, and just you mentioned the carbon dioxide is a stock pollutant. Why consider the carbon dioxide a stock pollutant? What is the definition of the stock pollutant? Actually, carbon dioxide, once it's going to the atmosphere, is going to be converted to the by photosynthesis by plants, and that it cannot be considered as a stock pollutant. My perception is the stock pollutant with the persistent pollutant. So carbon dioxide may not be the persistent pollutant or stock pollutants. What is your comment on that?
Yeah. So you're very right. Carbon dioxide may not be a stock pollutant, but when we talk about emissions, major contribution is by carbon dioxide, but there are other gases also. So there are components of gases which have not disappeared from the system pre-industrial era. So when we talk about those presence of those elements as a stock pollutant from the past, then there is a problem that how do we decide that which country is responsible for those pollutants. I was talking about that.
But madam, do you consider that the carbon dioxide emitted very long back, 200 years back, that might be still in the atmosphere?
Carbon dioxide as such may not be the culprit of the present pollution. Yes.
I'm telling you, the carbon dioxide is produced at the ground level, okay?
At the ground level.
And the gaseous pollutant, they have a tendency to move always on the upside. Okay?
Yes.
Now, what is happening, the hazardous condition is happening between the rain and the ground. Above what is happening, where there is no rain. When the carbon dioxide passes the barrier of that barrier, it remains in the atmosphere, and that's why it is considered as stock pollutant. Also, carbon dioxide is also one of them, because it will not remain within the portion between the raining part, the cloud part, and the ground part. There is the other part also, there it will remain, and that will disrupt the penetration of sunlight. And once the penetration of sunlight is get disrupt, the activities, the ecological performance will destroy. It may disturb also, the imbalance will be created. That's why the global, the authors, what you have told, this is a stock pollutants or the stock emission, those are creating disturbance. It is not being created today. It was created in the past also. And when the fire was discovered, that was the time that it started growing, the emission, the carbon dioxide started growing. This is the situation.
Yes, sir, you're completely right for that. In economics, what we talk about, which I have not mentioned in the lecture, was the discount rate. We take in the discount rate, the rate of depreciation, of conversion of emission into a temperature. So emission converting into a temperature, we consider a discounting in that. And that there are two various famous economists we consider as their study, that is Nordhaus and Stern's article. So they have two different discount rates at which they say that emissions are translated into temperature. And that is why we should have a future planning for emissions.
Doctor,
I believe Mr. Frederick has to say something.
So I just typed mine in the chat box, because if we talk about pollution, we as human beings generate waste as in our daily activity, and that is causing harm to nature. And then the human body itself also generates waste as in consumption, just to gain energy. So now if we accumulate all, nature itself also has a residue that gives back to humanity as waste. So in all, we should just aim at looking for solutions that will solve the problems and then put the system right for everybody to feel comfortable living within it, so that pollution will be less from human consumption, and probably the residue from nature will also be less. That's my impact I'll add on.
Thank you. That is well
Thank
taken.
you.
That is well taken. Okay.
So he is our international participant today.
Mm.
Thank you very much, Pooja. For the all,
Could you introduce yourself, Mr. Frederick?
Okay, my name is Frederick. I'm from Ghana, and then an environmentalist and agriculturalist.
Great to have you here. Thank you.
Right.
May I request now to our member secretary, sir, to please conclude and show us the way forward
Namaskar, ma'am.
with the announcement of the next title.
Thank you
And
for a
also
wonderful
Professor-
and informative presentation. The climate change, it is upon us, and the entire world is facing a climate change. Bihar is not an exception in that way. Bihar is in a way it experiences the impact in a different way. At the same time, in Bihar, we have a drought on the one side and flooding on the other side. Even if we don't get enough rainfall during rainy season, we even get flooded because we are located just adjoining to Nepal. Most of the rivers are fed from the Himalayas. So it was a very wonderful lecture, ma'am, and we are glad to have you. Thank you so much for your valuable time and for accepting our invitation to deliver this lecture. As you pointed out in your lecture, there cannot be one solution for this problem. One size fit all cannot be applicable in addressing or redressing the climate change impacts. That it should be a package of different policies, different actions. Like you said, decentralized and a combination of decentralized and centralized pathways. It was wonderful. And while we aim to mitigate, to adapt to climate change, we should not forget about the economically weaker strata in the society. So we should aim for a just transition, like weaker sections, the women group, the street hawkers, the agricultural laborers. So these people, section of the society should also be kept in mind while framing the new policy. So as we keep on facing the climate change impacts, the policy should also evolve accordingly. The welfare measures of the state should also evolve accordingly, what I understand. And for this, circular economy can be a good solution. And also as pollution control boards, as a regulatory body who looks after the environment here in the state, at the state level, we use the polluter pays principle, which is a legal principle which imposes a sort of monetary value to those units who pollute. And also, as you have rightly mentioned, that as per the Sustainable Development Goal and the commitment of our country in nationally determined contribution, of course, the targets, as per the government record, shows that we have achieved the targets well before 2030. But still, as a humanity, we have miles to go. Because this has no geopolitical boundary, and the action should be from all the countries and from all the strata of the society. What we are doing, it should take a bigger dimension, and it should be scaled up to the level that the 1.5 degree should not be breached. So with these few words, I thank you, ma'am, for your valuable time and for enlightening us on the topic climate change and imperatives of sustainability. Now, I would like to announce the 18th lecture of the Bihar State Pollution Control Board. The next lecture, that is the 18th lecture, will be on 28th of December 2023 at 3 p.m. by Dr. Charu Jamaria, Associate Professor, Department of Environmental Science, IIS, which is a deemed to be University, Jaipur. And she is going to deliver a lecture on green artificial intelligence towards an efficient, sustainable, and equitable future. So I thank once again on behalf of our Honorable Chairman, Bihar State Pollution Control Board, and on my behalf and on behalf of all my colleagues here for your time, ma'am. And also I thank those who have joined virtually, especially Mr. Frederick from Ghana. Thank you, Mr. Frederick, for joining us today. We are looking forward for your participation in the coming monthly lectures as well. So with this, I thank one and all and looking forward to meet you all.
Yeah, I will collect your memento. In person, I will deliver to you.
थैंक यू
ठीक है आपका memento मैं collect कर लूंगा